All right, Janelle, so I think we're recording now.
Okay. And then were you going to share your screen for the presentation?
Oh, sure, I can pull that up.
Okay, hi everyone. We're going to get started since it's at 10:15, 10:16 now. So I'm going to do a brief introduction and then the main speakers will take over. So my name is Janelle Miranda. I'm a second year pharmacy student at the University of California, San Francisco, or UCSF. And you can see a picture of UCSF right over here. We're in the hills of San Francisco. Sometimes it's foggy, but some days it's sunny, like in the picture. And all of the speakers today we are part of an organization or club called the National Hispanic Pharmacists Association. And some things that our organization does is we teach medical Spanish to the other schools at UCSF. So we often work with the medical students, dental students, physical therapy or nursing students, and we teach medical Spanish. And some other things that we do are outreaches like today. And so we're really excited to let you know that Los Altos High is our first high school outreach of the year. So we're excited to give this presentation to you all, and I'll pass it on to Daniel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Oliveira. I'm also part of NHPA as our P1 committee chair. So I help run some of these events, and I've been working with Janelle and Laura the past couple of months just to bring this to everyone here. I'm currently calling in from the UCSF Mission Bay campus, which is different from Parnassus as well. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker is Alec Brajas. So he's a second year pharmacy student here at UCSF with us, and he'll be sharing a little bit about his background and why he's chosen pharmacy and his experience. And then Alec is also accompanied by Anthony, who's a first year student. So he has a little bit less time here at UCSF, but he also can offer other points that maybe Alec didn't touch upon yet. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started then. Let me just go ahead and unmute and then I'll change the slide.
Okay, well, I would just like to welcome everybody to today's session. This is really just meant to give kind of a perspective of current pharmacy students and kind of our journey to this point in our careers. And as Daniel and Janelle mentioned, my name is Alec Brajas. I'm currently a P2 student. And in case you would like to contact me with any questions in the future, feel free to send me a quick email. Happy to help. And yeah, next slide, thank you. Okay, and I'll go ahead and get started about a little bit of background on me. In terms of my educational career, it all kind of started back when I attended high school in Merced, California, which is in the Central Valley. And it's a pretty small agricultural community, but during that time, I was pretty active in terms of kind of doing volunteer work out in the community, volunteering at Valley Children's Hospital whenever I had the opportunity to, and as well as in a variety of different sports like golf and soccer were some of my pastimes during then. I didn't have the opportunity to attend AVID or be involved in that program, but I did hear a lot of great things about it from my school. And I recognize that it's a really valuable program in helping people make that next step in higher education. And then after attending high school, I made the decision to apply to UCLA. And I initially entered as a chemistry major, but I decided to change it to biochemistry. And I was involved in a couple of different experiences, which I'll go into more later. And after attending UCLA, I went ahead and went right into the UCSF School of Pharmacy, where I've currently been a student and currently a second year in that program. Next slide, please.
Hey, so hi everyone, my name's Anthony. I grew up in Los Angeles. I went to a small charter school called Academia Avante Charter School. It was a mostly Hispanic population there, which really explains my involvement in NHPA. The school really stressed, giving back to the community and community service. And that's really a big part of what I look to do. Just like Alec, I applied to UCLA and I entered as a bio major. I chose bio knowing that, I want to do something in healthcare, but I didn't particularly know, what I wanted to do, but I knew bio was a good major to really prepare myself for that. And unlike Alec, I actually took a year off after graduating. And during that year, I spent that time, working in a pharmacy and applying to pharmacy school. And now I'm here at UCSF.
Yeah, and just going into a little bit more about kind of my my path towards UCLA and my college experience. So I was pretty fortunate to have a good support system with my family, as well as an academic counselor who was kind of able to guide me in the process of getting college applications ready, starting at the beginning of my senior year. And really, I wanted to get kind of a variety of different places of interest that I was looking at. And I kind of just decided to narrow it down to applying to only 4 UC programs, 2 Cal States, and 2 private colleges. I found the overall application process, although it was a lot of material to go through, I think that starting early on really helped me. And having my academic counselor there to ask any questions was really a great resource during that time. And as I mentioned earlier, even though I entered as a chemistry major, I decided to change that about during my second year of college to biochemistry. And I feel like that was really due to my change in interest from kind of a more engineering background of chemical engineering to more looking into something in the medical field. And ultimately, I kind of found that pharmacy was a perfect niche that really appealed to kind of my interest at that point. And yeah, it's pretty common, at least from what I've heard, to switch majors. So I wouldn't say, going into college that it's expectations that you need to, graduate whatever you decide to apply as. That's subject to change, and changing majors is something that's pretty common. In terms of some areas I try to be involved in, I liked being involved in different extracurriculars, and also things, different areas of service, such as the Flying Samaritans, which is basically a group that runs a nonprofit clinic in Tijuana, Mexico, where we're able to screen patients as well as administer medications kind of in an outpatient setting. And I found that to be really rewarding and something that, kind of solidified my interest in pharmacy and kind of working in that type of setting. I also didn't want to make sure that pharmacy was the right career path for me. And I thought the best way to do that would be to get a job within a pharmacy. So I went ahead and was a pharmacy technician for my junior and senior year, just to kind of get that retail experience and figure out, if I can envision myself in that setting. And then I also wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to do research, because I really did like engineering at that point. And I found a great lab that was able to kind of integrate my interest in that area. Next slide, please.
So my high school actually is a college preparatory school, is what they're known for. They actually really do a good job preparing you to apply to college, and they really walk you through the process. So I ended up applying to 4 UC programs, 1 Cal State, and 4 private programs. The reasoning behind that is because I just want to kind of maximize my options and be flexible. So I entered UCLA as a bio major, and just like Alex said, switching majors is very, very common. And in fact, if you don't know what major you want to do, you don't particularly need to know until, I don't know, maybe like halfway through your undergrad is what I would say. But I think bio is a good major because, at least for me, it was very flexible. You can take a wide range of classes, and depending on if you want to go into healthcare, no matter what field you go to, you'll have the opportunity to take the classes needed for those healthcare fields. As for my involvements, one of my biggest involvements is there was an organization that actually organized health fairs for the communities throughout Southern California. So what we would do is we would plan health fairs, and people would come in, and there's like quite a few services they can have. They can get their flu shot there. They can have their blood pressures taken. There's a lot of education opportunities to teach them about different medical conditions. Also, I was involved in a lot of community service orgs. One of my favorite activities for service was activities called Meals on Wheels, which happened in Skid Row in Los Angeles. It's a very undeserved community. What we would do is we would actually make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and we would go out and deliver it to homeless people throughout the area. So that was really one of my more meaningful projects. And just like Alec, I also was a pharmacy technician. I think if you're going to go into pharmacy, it's best to have some experience to really see if it's a good fit for you. And for me, I worked as a pharmacy technician my 4th year and the year off from school. And it really kind of solidified my decision to apply to pharmacy school.
And I'd just kind of like to briefly discuss why I decided to go into the area of pharmacy as well as select UCSF. And really what it came down to is at that point in college, I was looking towards like pre-health and I wasn't really sure what area I was interested in. But the thing that drew me to pharmacy is that there's a lot of opportunities for patient interaction. And that could either include like counseling patients, it can be, screening patients, it can be just overall, whether it be over the phone, there's just so many different opportunities to work with patients. And that's something that I was looking for. And since I was interested in chemistry and biochemistry at that point, I found that a lot of the things that were being taught in pharmacy kind of came down to the physiology and those different areas that I was really interested in. So I can see myself, continuing to learn in these different subjects, and that really appealed to me. Also, I found that typically pharmacists, they have a pretty stable work environment and schedule. Most pharmacists, they work like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And that's just kind of, something I'm looking for in terms of my career. And besides that, there's many other different things that drew me to pharmacy. But ultimately, once I knew that pharmacy was right for me, I started looking into a lot of these different programs in California. And one that really stood out to me was UCSF for multiple reasons. One of those being that its classes, when they were in person, they were actually within the Parnassus Academic Health Center, which is that picture there. And I really could envision myself, going into the hospital, taking these classes, learning among other health professionals. And that really was something that attracted me to UCSF. And then also, since they have really great faculty and really great courses, they have a great record of the NAPLEX and the CPGE exams, which are both required for pharmacists to be licensed in California. And also, if you're interested in pursuing a residency after you graduate, they also are very successful in preparing students for that. And also, since I was born in the Central Valley and only knew things from the Central Valley and in LA during my brief time, I really wanted to get the full exposure of what life was like in San Francisco. And it's a great city. There's so much things to do, so many places to see, and it's a great culture. And I ultimately, was drawn to UCSF because of that. Next slide, please. Okay. So at this point in the presentation, we were going to introduce a Zoom poll just to ask this really quick question to see how the attendants feel. Okay, great. Looks like we have a response. If you'd like to put in the chat, so we don't have to go ahead and necessarily create a Zoom poll, that will work as well. So it looks like we got a response. Both responses are for B. Okay. And it's just good to know because, not many people really know the nuances of pharmacy. And I think it's really great to learn a little bit more about that. And we can go ahead and do that going over the next couple slides.
Yeah, so there's actually so many areas of pharmacy and just really too much for me to get into in our presentation. So I'll just, try to do a very brief overview of it. So the first type of pharmacy is community pharmacy. This is probably what you would be most familiar with. It's basically CVS, Walgreens are the retail chains. Those are considered community pharmacies, and also some independent pharmacies that aren't big chains, just private, maybe like small businesses. So they're very community oriented. You just walk into your local CVS and get your vaccine, your medications, anything you need. Another big category would be hospital pharmacy. So within hospital pharmacy, there's just so much more specialties. But in hospital, basically, you're working in a hospital setting and you're working with patients that, might have to stay overnight in a hospital or are just leaving the hospital. And there's more, some specialties or you can specialize in different fields like, cardiology, oncology, or diseases. You can specialize in like the emergency department. And one of the key things about hospital pharmacy is that you're actually working directly with other healthcare professionals. Like they're right there with you, and it's really like a very big team environment. So that's just a very brief overview of hospital pharmacy. And then you have industry pharmacy, which you might not be familiar with, but actually pharmacists play a huge role in different pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, Moderna are some big examples right now. So you can do anything from researching drugs and actually making them, or to marketing and actually selling them and promoting them using your pharmaceutical knowledge. And what they actually do, well, dispense medications. All pharmacists are going to do that. So at CVS, they have to get the prescriptions, make sure everything is okay, prepare the medications, and then give it to patients. Same thing in hospital setting, they'll be preparing medications and delivering it throughout the hospital to all the patients around. And then educating and counseling patients. Medications are really like kind of the last step in a lot of scenarios for patients before they get home. So pharmacists really want to make sure that the patients know what they're doing and what they're taking, and to watch out for any side effects. And like I touched upon in the hospital setting, but not just the hospital setting, but everywhere, pharmacists are going to work with other healthcare professionals, from doctors, nurses, even researchers. And a lot of them really go to pharmacists for advice. So as the pharmacist, you should be knowledgeable and be ready to, advise your healthcare team on what we should do regarding the medications and what's best for the patient. And optimizing patient treatments, a lot of times you're going to look at all these medications that patients are taking, and you're going to, ask yourself, oh, should they be doing this instead? Should we keep them on this? Should we add this? And really working with the patient's health in mind and making sure they have the best outcome. And another big role that has really, exploded with the COVID pandemic is vaccinating. Pharmacists have been giving just so many vaccines to people. And nowadays you can just walk into your, the CVS around the corner and you can get your COVID vaccine, which is kind of unheard of before the pandemic. And then the last part is, like I touched upon, researching drugs and marketing them. All these companies are always researching, new drugs that can really improve patients' health, and pharmacists play a big role in that.
Great. And now I'd just kind of like to briefly go over kind of the path to ultimately become a licensed pharmacist. And I won't go into like every single detail here, but this just kind of gives an overview of the process. Ultimately, after attending high school, and if you decide to attend an undergraduate university, during your first few couple of years, you're just going to want to like look into some potential pharmacy programs, potentially get involved in some projects that are pharmacy related, just to see if you're interested in that area. And overall, just get a good exposure of what the pharmacy field is like, just to make sure that you have specific programs that you might be interested in applying to, or specific areas of pharmacy that you might consider. And then kind of halfway through your undergrad career, that's when you just kind of want to make sure you meet with your academic counselor to develop a schedule that kind of makes sure you're getting all your prerequisites done in order to apply to pharmacy school. And a lot of those classes are in areas such as chemistry, biochemistry, biology, anatomy, physiology, physics, like a lot of the physical and a lot of the physical sciences, stuff like that. There's, they have specific schedules that schools send out just in case people want to reference it to make sure they're taking all their prereq classes. And then kind of nearing your 4th year of undergrad, that's when you would want to start looking into preparing your pharmacy school applications, or, making the decision to take a break and not necessarily go right into applying for pharmacy, which is something that's very common as well. And after, you complete the pharmacy school applications, which is pretty consistent with what you might see when applying to undergrad, then you'll have the opportunity to get invited to interviews and potentially attend those interviews if you're interested. And after, a couple of weeks of waiting, then ultimately those decisions come out. And, after that time, if you are accepted into a program, you're just going to want to make sure you complete all those prereq classes. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, great. So now at this point, you should, have finished up your undergrad and attained your BS. So you're ready to start in the pharmacy program, or you have, just taken a break after undergrad and you're ready to come start pharmacy school. And during that time, it kind of depends on if you're attending a 3-year or 4-year program. At least for our program, UCSF, since it is a 3-year accelerated program, during the first couple years, you're going to be taking all those courses and trainings within the program, and remaining involved in a couple of different projects based on your interest. And then really towards the last year or the last 2 years in some programs, that's when you'll be starting doing clinical rotations in different pharmacy settings. Some of the things that Anthony mentioned earlier, like working in retail, working in a hospital, working in like outpatient clinics, those are some common different areas. And if you are interested in pursuing like postgraduate programs, which is like a residency to become specialized in the area of pharmacy, or if you're interested in pursuing a fellowship, which is more kind of aligned with research, then you would want to get your applications ready during that time so you can apply to those programs. But generally, if during this time, you're just going to go ahead and make sure you finish those rotations and pass all the curriculum in order to obtain your PharmD. And once you have your PharmD, you're able to actually sit for the exams. And both 2 exams you're going to need for California is the NAPLEX as well as the CPGE. The NAPLEX kind of tests more of your therapeutic knowledge, your clinical knowledge, stuff you're learning in school, whereas the CPGE is more of an exam focused on applying the laws of pharmacy, because there are quite a few that pharmacists have to abide by, and they just want to make sure that you're aware of that before you become licensed. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, if you're interested in doing that postgrad training, then after you obtain your PharmD and pass these exams, then you're just continue for an additional 1 to 2 years in order to specialize in a specific area. And overall, this process can take between 7 to 8 years after starting undergrad. So it is a quite extensive process, but it is definitely possible, and it's a very rewarding career. So it may seem a little bit overwhelming, but it is something that, at least that I found, it's actually flies by. Next slide, please. Yeah, and I just kind of want to reiterate that, these last 2 slides, it may seem very overwhelming in terms of like how much time or how many steps there are in order to reach kind of becoming a licensed pharmacist, but you should definitely know that it is possible. And, although it may seem that there's so many different, levels or steps that you might have to go through, there are many people along the way that are there to help. And there's many people that are there to encourage you and make sure that you're going along in the process and are able to achieve your goal if you want to become a licensed pharmacist. Next slide, please.
So we have another Zoom question here, just to kind of lead into our next topic. So how do you feel about online classes? Do you prefer them, or do you prefer in person, or a little mix of both? I see a lot of B's in the chat, prefer in person. Yeah, that's definitely understandable. It's not the same online, but with how things are, online classes, the option right now. I see Daniel put C. And we'll talk about what life or the classes are like here at UCSF in a bit. So, and also do want to add on to what Alex said. Time really does fly. I'm just the first year, but I feel like my first year has already flown by. So I'll just get into what the typical day looks like for a first year student. It's pretty standard, pretty normal. You wake up around 7 to 8 and eat breakfast, hopefully. But usually my classes will start at 8, 9, or 10. And then they usually end at 12, at least for the morning classes. And between 12 to 1 is your lunch break. And also there's a lot of organizations at UCSF, and you'll find that a lot of them, they usually bring in, some guest speakers, usually pharmacists or other professionals to have little talks during that lunch break. So usually I'll have lunch and also, attend one of them and hear what they have to say. And then after that, your afternoon classes will sometimes will run from 1 to 5, usually not all 1 to 5. Usually for me, it's like 1 to 3 or 2 to 4. Then after that, you're done with class. So now you can either relax, go to the gym. There's also office hours where you can, spend more time with your professors and, go over material. And then dinner around 6 to 7 or 7 to 8. And then after that, just study, catch up on work or prepare for the next day. Sometimes there's a little bit of work or reading to do before classes next day, and then get some sleep. As for first years, on either your Tuesdays or your Thursdays, you'll do what's called IPP community rotations, which is basically where you'll go to a community pharmacy, like CVS and Walgreens are the most common ones. Some people go to Kaiser as well. And you'll actually spend a day in the pharmacy learning from your pharmacist. And you can do anything from, preparing the medications to actually practicing educating patients on their medications. And your pharmacist really teach you what it's like to be a pharmacist in a community setting. And then on weekends, you can, relax, study, hang out, explore the city, or work. I currently am an intern at CVS, so I work about, once a week, like usually the Saturday. And then I spend the rest of my weekend just relaxing or studying.
And just to provide a perspective from a second year pharmacy student, a lot of my schedule is kind of consistent with Anthony's. It's really, pretty similar, just like trying to figure out, morning classes. It also does go until 12, taking the opportunity to take a lunch break and then continue with classes that typically are from 1 to 5 or 1 to 3 on some days. And then I generally use that time to either attend office hours to get any questions answered from the professor, or attend any meetings that might be necessary. And then I try leaving myself a little bit of time to either exercise or just take a quick break, because after attending so many virtual classes, you want to take opportunity to relax just for a few minutes. And then also after taking the opportunity to eat and take care of your well-being, it's important that I generally find myself studying or using that time to catch up on schoolwork. And then after I feel like that's all been done for the day, then I generally try catching up on some sleep. And that's generally the schedule for Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. But on Mondays and Wednesdays, it's kind of a little bit of a different schedule, because during about a 2.5 to 3 month period, you'll be on something called an API rotation, which is more of a educational experience where you're able to learn from pharmacists in a more inpatient setting. So at least for me personally, I had mine back during the first block, and during that time, I was working at the UCSF Parnassus Hospital and kind of helping people transition from inpatient to outpatient and counseling them on getting their medications ready to go and be released back to home. So I really enjoyed that experience. And that was kind of what I did for my API rotations. And then on my weekends, I do try taking the opportunity to work as a pharmacy intern in a Walgreens pharmacy. And then I also try catching up on my internship at the San Francisco VA. And after all that time, if I have a free extra day or just a few couple hours, I make sure to take the time to do something relaxing or just catch up with a couple of friends. And we just kind of wanted to provide some perspective about what has changed in the School of Pharmacy program since the COVID pandemic started. Really, I started the program in kind of the middle of when the pandemic was going on. So all my classes at that point were virtual, and there was a few quarters where they allowed us to go in person to the hospital to do like small skill sessions, but our large lectures are generally held virtually. So during the pandemic, there's been a lot of changes to how we're able to learn the curriculum. But generally, this has provided pharmacy students an opportunity to work on the front lines, essentially, of this pandemic, whether it be through vaccinating others, whether it be, counseling others or spreading educational materials to the public, just to make them aware that, of the different resources or the different ways that they can protect themselves from this virus. And also, as I kind of mentioned earlier, all of our online lectures have been virtual, but there was a point where we were able to attend small group sessions in person. And at that point, we were able to, learn in a traditional environment. And I would say with this pandemic, there's also been more opportunities to do virtual outreach. So there have been pharmacy students who have been involved in organizations that reach out to others to, help people sign up for insurances, provide solve any questions that they may have regarding insurance. Also, making sure that we're providing educational material to inform the public in different areas. And also there's been the UCSF vaccination clinic, which was able to vaccinate a majority of the UCSF staff and faculty and its students, as well as a lot of members of the community. So pharmacists have really been instrumental, and pharmacy students, have been really instrumental in making sure that we're not only vaccinating the community, but we're also educating the community during this time. Next slide, please. All right. And yeah, I believe that kind of concludes our presentation. We did want to leave a few extra minutes here in case anybody had any questions that they would like to ask or anything that we can help clarify about what we mentioned during the presentation.
I have a curveball question, maybe, but it's more about, let me put my camera onto me. Do you have any insight for like undocumented students in this pathway?
So in terms of being interested in applying to the program or as an undocumented person within the program?
I suppose both. Just is USF, friendly for undocumented students, and once admitted, are there supports that you're aware of for students to sort of find community?
I can speak a little bit about that. I'm not personally an undocumented student, but I have a couple of friends that are part of UCSF School of Pharmacy, and I am actually part of a program called the First Generation Services. There's a first generation services. So if you're the first in your family to go to college or the first in your family or your first generation immigrant, I guess, in America, there is a program where they match you to a mentor at UCSF. So if you're, UCSF has 5 schools, right? The School of Medicine, School of Pharmacy, Physical Therapy, et cetera. So they're knowing that your first gen, they're going to match you to a mentor. At the same time, in terms of like loans and things like that, how to pay for your schooling, there is a special type of loan for people with that are not documented. So you actually get a really good discount compared to those that I'm not exactly sure about the details, but there is a special type of loan that you get that no one else is able to get.
Thank you.
I do see that a question was put into the chat. If you want to be a researcher, is there a slightly different path? And I would say that once you start UCSF Pharmacy School, there are some opportunities to conduct research in multiple different labs. Generally, there are some also opportunities if you're interested in pursuing a PharmD PhD. UCSF also offers that type of program where after completing your PharmD, you will just continue on with conducting research and meeting all the requirements in order to obtain a PhD. And that's a way that people who are really interested in conducting research within a pharmaceutical setting, they can also look into that if they're interested in it. But I would say that the path is generally the same. In the curriculum, you're just going to want to make sure you complete all your courses, all your trainings, everything within the curriculum that's going to be able to help you get your PharmD. And after that point, it's kind of a decision up to the person if they want to pursue a fellowship where they can do further research, if they want to continue on and pursue that PhD, or if they would like to continue doing research in the form of working in a PI lab or working in something that's called a discovery project, which is kind of a longitudinal research project that students are assigned during the last 2 years of the curriculum. So in short, there's many opportunities to do research, whether it be on a PharmD level or whether it be kind of continuing on and if you want to pursue a PhD as well. Oh, good. I do see another question here. What kind of classes would you have to take during high school to be better prepared for a pharmacy program? And I'll go ahead and pass it on to Anthony just to give opportunity for everyone to give their perspective.
Yeah, at least for me, I think I'm not sure about classes because I mean, you have your high school classes, right? But I think the best you could prepare yourself is just researching what pharmacy is, whether it just be online or maybe talking to people in pharmacy to really learn about what it is, the pathway, what they do to see if it's right for you. And as far as preparing yourself, I think it's more about preparing yourself to go to college and then applying to college. Because I know in high school, I didn't really know what pharmacy was. I think looking back, if I was able to, research it more, I think I could have made the decision to do pharmacy a little earlier. I'm not sure if anyone else has anything to add in terms of classes to take.
I can talk a little bit about it, maybe not in terms of the classes, but something I did over the summer as a high school junior going into my senior year was I did a high school summer research opportunity. And I know there's a few programs out there in the Silicon Valley. So I went to San Mateo High School and I took, we have a biotech program there, and they helped us apply for like the summer research program. And I actually worked in a lab in the Parkinson's Institute and Clinical Center in Sunnyvale, California for a summer. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And I got to talk about that in my college applications. And I know that there's various programs for high school students. If you look on Google, or you can always email me if you want to go down that route or do that over the summer. So I'd suggest that to get a little more exposure into like research if you're interested in that.
Any last minute questions before we wrap up today's session? These are kind of our social media pages that NHPA uses to for our organization, and feel free to look into that. Or as I mentioned earlier, feel free to send either Anthony or I a quick email, and we'll be happy to address any future questions.
Thank you all so much for this wonderful presentation, very inspiring stories and very helpful information. We appreciate your time so much.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you, Los Altos High, for the opportunity to come speak today.
All right, good luck with school. It's exciting. All right, we'll be in touch. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.